Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Midweek Metagame. I'm your host, Gaulian Nassif, joined by my regular co-host, Edgar and
Hello, hello.
Lots to get into this week. Early access stuff. I got to play some standard. Edgar's been playing a lot of limited. He's gonna give me and everyone listening a crash course on Lorwyn. I've literally only done one draft, and I think I drafted the worst tribe elemental. I've played a bit of Modern, Blue White Miracles chant for controlled fans out there. We'll talk a tiny bit about Premodern, and a bunch about Standard. We're testing for the PT. We can't get into the weeds of what we've been doing, but what we're going to do is we're going to go over the results of the first challenge and the first few 5 leagues on Magic Online. I listed every Lorwyn card that was played in the decks, give you an overview of early Standard. So, yeah, tons to get into. Before we do that, I'd like to remind you that the podcast will always be free, but if you want to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/midweekmetagame for $1 an ep. If you like the podcast and you can afford to. I might add, there's not a dedicated Discord, but maybe I'll add a midweek metagame part to my Discord, and this way people can ask questions about the apps, or if they need a list, or maybe questions, stuff like that. That could be an idea. Also want to shout out my sponsors, TCG Player and Ultimate Guard. If you're watching on YouTube, I got the jersey on. Anytime you do business with TCG Player or Ultimate Guard, that helps me out as well. So yeah, keep it in mind next time you need to buy cards or sleeves. It's a kind of indirect way to support the podcast, etc. Well, that's out of the way. Let's get into it. Another week, another set release. What do we get now? Like 6 a years for standard on average?
Yeah, something crazy like that. I feel like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set is coming out in a couple weeks or something. The turnaround time is crazy. So, yeah, a lot of sets. I think six standard legal sets per year now. So quick turnaround.
Yeah. So why don't you lead with limited? Lorwyn crash course for people who want to draft or just know about the format for people who've been drafting but aren't sure. Why don't you share kind of what you learn, kind of overview of maybe try and give us a ranking of the tribes or the color combos or anything that stood out that's not intuitive. Yeah, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've been drafting a good amount. Went to pre-release, did a sealed, and then did a bunch of arena drafts and a couple house drafts as well. And the format so far, we had some banger limited formats last year. Honestly, all of them were pretty premium. This one is not really shaping out the same way, but there's still a lot of opportunity in this format. I think it can be really tough with these kindred based formats, right? To kind of not be in a spot where you get shoehorned in your draft. Like it can kind of feel like when you take an early, heavy synergy type card that you don't get a lot of decisions in the draft process. But I have actually been finding that a lot of the kindred synergies are actually not that strong, and it's kind of shaping out to be a little bit more of a regular limited format than I thought it was going to be, and that's pretty promising, I would say, because I think if it was a lot of the kindred stuff was really powerful, then it would lead to a little bit of a worse format. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just started, I would say, the same way that a lot of other people started, and just kind of picking an archetype. And if I'm black green, take as many elves as possible, take some removal spells. Same with goblins, same with elementals. But I have not found those strategies to be super effective. And the main thing that I've been noticing is that what it requires you to do is play a lot of subpar creatures, and the games in this format seem to be devolving into like really scrappy board states where like every point of power can matter, like every small piece of advantage can matter. And when you're casting like 2 mana 2/1s or 2/2 life linkers that end up getting bricked by 1/4s or 2/5s or whatever it may be, then that can be real card advantage lost. So I've been trying to shy away from drafting the heavy kindred stuff and just kind of drafting more normal decks. Like earlier today, I had just kind of like a black red mid range deck with very few goblins, but a lot of the -1/-1 synergies still, for when those cards are individually powerful, or playing a lot of the off color combinations. So the main color combinations being the five tribes, not including fairies. So that's black green elves, red black goblins, green white kithkin, blue white merfolk, and blue red elementals. But a lot of the other five color combinations I think are quite strong. I've been really liking black white. I've been really liking um, white red actually. Um, and I've been liking red green a lot too, although red green typically has a lot of splashes.
Yeah, red green is vivid, and the white black is blight kind of. Blight seems pretty strong overall.
Yeah, that's kind of been the thing that I've been experimenting most recently is a lot of the I wouldn't really say that black white is blight, is more like -1/-1 synergy, so like not necessarily like really taking advantage of the creatures that enter with the counters already. And yeah, obviously the way to like really pull ahead with that is to use the played cards to get additional activations, but a lot of them are kind of just really strong on their own and work well together as well. So I've been really liking, all of the tree folks that remove counters, like the -2/-2 one. The draw card one is phenomenal, and the white black hybrid one I think is like a really great early card to take as well. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that archetype. Just building like a slow, controlling mid-range deck.
Yeah, honestly, I only did one draft, but kind of reflects or mirrors what you just said. I was blue red elementals. My two drops were bad. It was the common two drop that you can pump, and I think elementals has a pretty bad uncommon. Its title card is pretty bad. It's like the free flying for 4 mana. Um, and yeah, I just started elementals because I got a command early on, and I guess I should have stuck. I actually opened Abigail and maybe should have stuck to that. But yeah, it kind of reflects what you said. The my tutus, even when I played it on curve, felt like they never did anything, and the games got a little grindy, and my cards were just worse than my opponents on raid, and I didn't do well. So what would you
Yeah,
recommend people like try or do when if they draft for the first time?
well, I think it's still possible and good to draft those decks, those five archetypes. I would just, really be conscious when you're making your picks that you're not doing too much of like, oh, I need to take this card because it's an
Yeah,
elemental or whatever it may be. Um, so like there's very few cards in the format that actually reward you for having 15 of a creature type in your deck as opposed to 7. So I would really try to like lean more towards being in that 7 range than the 15 range.
yeah,
That being said, it's funny that you mentioned elementals because early on that was kind of my experience too, where the elemental stuff kind of felt weaker than the other synergies. But now that I think that the synergies are less good overall, I've actually been kind of higher on the elemental cards than the other cards just because when the games kind of bog down on raid, I think a lot of those cards are actually stronger, or rather they just line up better because they're like really high defense, low power cards. And when these boards are coming down, like if your opponent's casting 2/1s and you're casting 1/4s, you're kind of pulling ahead. So like the eclipsed elemental being a 1/4, it kind of lines up well against all the other eclipse creatures. The like 4 mana 2/4 that draws you cards when you cast more expensive spells. Like that's the type of card that would typically be really slow in limited formats and kind of bad if curving out is good. But it's a card that I think is actually might be great in this format. It might just like secretly be one of the better uncommons. So I've kind of been coming up on the elementals deck, but I think a key aspect of it is that you need to build all of these decks to have a plan to win the late game, or else you risk either petering out or even potentially decking yourself. So I think it's like it's pretty important to be flush on removal, but not be in a spot where you need to use it to push in damage on the ground, because that's really short-sighted in a format where you don't have a lot of combat tricks, and people can play more blockers. So you need to have stuff like sufficient amount of flyers or reach, or some way to close out the end game that doesn't involve casting your removal spells, because you really need to save them for your opponent's bombs, because there are a lot of bombs.
All right, yeah, I saw the might be my favorite card already. The red land cycler that 6/5 for 6 that lets you play a card until the end of your next turn. That card looks sweet
Yep.
for a
That
common.
that card's really good. I think the blue land cycler is also pretty good in the elementals deck, just for the reason I said earlier, just having a way to kind of close out the end game, that you can bake into your deck. But yeah, the red one's been great for me as well.
Yeah, I was listening to Lords of Limited a bit, trying to play catch up, and they mentioned how they were playing off curve a lot in this format. They felt like they had reasons to play off curve, and um, yeah, that kind of goes back to your point of maybe the games are a little slower and it's about the late game and just having generic good cards in your deck.
Yeah, you still need to make sure you don't get run over, but it's not like in a lot of limited formats, if you play your 2 drop and your 3 drop, but then like you don't have, like, your opponent has a combat trick or a removal spell and they're also curving out, like sometimes that's not good enough. In this format, it's good enough. Like there's basically no playable combat tricks in the whole format, and um, a lot of the removal spells like are kind of sketchy to cast early, or if they cast them early and you just have another blocker, they kind of accomplish nothing, like putting you to from 20 to 15. So, playing a 2 mana 1/3 into a 3 mana 1/4 like is gonna really be a huge hindrance for a lot of the aggressive decks. Um, Now that being said, I think the way that there are still ways to draft the aggressive decks, but I think they involve going bigger more than wider. Um, for example, I drafted a Kithkin deck that I cropied with yesterday that had 3 copies of the 4 mana 0/5 that gives your like all your Kithkins exalted basically.
Hmm.
That card was kind of just a really huge beating for most of my opponents, because if they try to turtle up behind some high toughness creatures and you just attack with 1/7/7 every turn for the entire game, it's tough for them to beat that.
Yeah, the few games that I won was a blue red deck where I could get aggressive was a 4/3 trample for 4 that gives you a treasure, and the +3/+2 pump spell was actually pretty good for me. Just because they had
The one that gives a
trample.
treasure.
Yeah, that was give a treasure, but it was just like really just because I had a decently stat trample creature, and it pumps the toughness, and I was able to like get
Right.
a lot of damage for and save my creatures. Um, but maybe
Yeah. So
I'm hitting you with my 6 game sample size of Lorwyn Limited.
no, I mean, I think it's true. I think that's one of the few kind of playable. I mean, there's so few pump spells in general, and even fewer that are playable. So there's that one. There's one in a white for +2/+2 and first strike, and then there's one in a green for +3/+3. And if you've cast a creature, you also draw a card. But that one's an uncommon, so you're rarely going to see that one. And that's almost the entire list, like right
Yeah.
there of pump spells in the format. So it's it's funny because like when you do have one of them, it's almost like you know it's gonna work, because your your opponent is like less likely to respect it. But um, yeah, it can be really tough to not have that density when you're trying to beat down.
Yeah, what's your guess on the kind of the life? How do you say that? The life of the is it like going to be fun to draft like 20 times, 30 times? I think there's a bit of depth to it. You were talking about like the fact that it's not just the typal decks that are good, and there's more to it. And
Yeah, I'm a little optimistic that some of the fact that it's weird. So like the 5 non-main color combinations, they're supported, not as deep as the main 5, but there's clearly some support there. Given the colors of the hybrid cards and stuff like that. But it's I think it's still not going to have that much longevity, unless there's a lot of depth when it comes to like building these 3-color mid-range decks, like not necessarily vivid stuff, but just like the using the fact that the format is slow to like, be able to play more grindy stuff, more colors, and then you have more depth in deck building, or rather in drafting, because you can stay open longer knowing that you're more likely to splash, stuff like that. So maybe the drafts are still going to be interesting, but the fact that there's still going to be a percentage of time where, you open the green champion and you kind of just put your head down and you draft all the elves, and sometimes your deck's going to be a 10, sometimes your deck's going to be a 5. Like I don't really like that stuff, so hopefully that doesn't overshadow it too much.
Yeah, what about a first um, look and for initial rankings of color combo roughly? Or yeah, you
Um,
can try and do all 10 if you want, but
yeah, so I'll do the main tribes. So of the
I think
five,
we're
I
supposed to
think
say
I would.
types now, typal,
Yeah,
not
sorry,
tribal.
types or
Yeah.
yeah, kins. Um, so I would probably rank elementals on top,
Oh wow.
and then yeah, just because of the nature of the format, I think it's gonna end up being the strongest of the five, and then after that, I would give it to uh probably elves, just because elves I think has the most bombs and the best filler. So when you end up in the kind of like the 15 creature type deck, I think they kind of edge out a little bit. Um, and then after that, I would put it on Merfolk, but I think Merfolk is similar to Elementals in that you don't really want to build with 15 Merfolks. You kind of just wanted to build it like a late game deck. Um, and then no, I would give Kithkin next, and then Goblins last. I think Goblins has kind of just not been working out for me. I think Black Red can be good, but I think you don't want to be 15 Goblins. I think you just want to play the good ones, the good Blade cards, and then that's going to be enough synergy. Um, and then for the five non main color combinations, I think I really like Orzov, so I'm gonna put that one at top. So that's giants with -1/-1 counter
Yeah.
synergies. Um, and then after that, I would probably give it to Boros, which usually ends up just being like a white mid range deck with some red removal spells. Um, and then what am I missing? Oh, actually, I would put fairies first and then Boros. Fairies, I think, can be pretty strong. The hybrid blue black uncommon I think is really really good. So it's triple blue black for like a 2/3 flyer, and whenever you cast something on your opponent's turn, you draw a card, lose a life. That card is very very strong, and a lot of the cards that enable that, a lot of the other decks don't really want, which is nice. Something like the flash creatures. Yeah, and then Boros, and then I would put red green last, and I don't know which one I'm missing.
Blue green, I think.
Blue green and red green are kind of the same deck, so yeah, I would put those in the bottom. I don't think the vivid stuff is that good. I mean, I could see myself eating crow on that one, but
Yeah.
I tried to draft some Puka Eyes and some of the ramp spell that makes your land a color, and then a bunch of vivid stuff, but it's really hard to put it together, I think. And I think I would almost always rather just be like elementals with a couple vivid cards. Um, because it's pretty easy to most of the vivid cards. I guess I haven't talked about this yet, but most of the vivid cards are pretty strong just on like three colors. Like you don't need to go the full five. Like I'm talking the 6 mana 3/3 flyer draw cards. Like that one's good on three. The white one that makes Kithkins, that one's good on three. Um, what are the other main ones? The rest are escaping me, but or like the 2 mana 1/1 that bolts something like three
Yeah.
is kind of plenty for that. So like all of these cards are good enough on three, and if you end up with a scarecrow or like a hybrid card, like it can be pretty easy to get to four some games, but not super necessary, and that's good enough. And like you don't really need to be a dedicated vivid deck to do any of that stuff. So I think a lot of those cards end up getting cannibalized, and it could be pretty difficult to end up in the dedicated vivid deck.
Yeah. It's so hard to draft when you don't know much about the set. Like I was trying to draft an aggressive elemental deck with the 2/2 for 2 that pumps and games menace when really I should have been
Hmm.
picking the 1/3 for blue and one that draws your card when it dies and play
When
a
you block,
defensive
yeah.
deck. Yeah, no, it's
I do think
crazy.
that 2-2's pretty strong still. Like
Yeah.
I'm it's kind of the one of the ones. So that's part of the reason I like the Elementals deck is because it has multiple 2-drop commons that scale good with the late game, right? And that's kind of again the recurring issue with a lot of these other 2-drops is that they don't scale well. Like the all of these 2/1s, whether they get first strike or lifelink or whatever it may be, like they just get bricked very easily. But a 1/3 that cantrips and a 2/2 that can at least trade up sometimes or get in some damage scale really nicely. So, um, yeah, I'm definitely happy to put either of those cards in my deck.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I wish we had recorded that like a couple days ago. I guess you maybe didn't do so many reps. That's why we're recording a little later in the week than usual because figured we'd have games under our belt. One thing I didn't mention during the intro is that I played my first league of Modern was the new cards. Living In was the new Elemental, so that's something we'll talk about as well. Yeah, give us that extra day of few more results out there and a little more playing with the cards and stuff. Yeah, and you want anything else that stands out to you so far in that limited format?
No, that's about it. Just open a good rare. There's only like 5 that aren't, so if you get one of those, you get some complaint equity. But um, yeah, just stay open as long as you can. Take advantage of the good rares you can open up in the later packs, and it's easy to splash too. So if you end up waffling a little bit, sometimes you don't even get punished for it.
All right, cool. All right, next we're gonna talk about early standard results on Magic Online and early access. Early access was a little underwhelming for me. I tried all the typo decks. I tried Reanimator was the new cards. That was by far the best. I don't know by far, but I think it was the best deck I played. Just Reanimator was Formidable Speaker, which is Jean-Emmanuel Depraz World Championship card, and the Elementals, the typal stuff, whether it's Goblin, Merfolk, Elves, Kifkin. It was all underwhelming. Kifkin was nice, streamlined, aggressive, but it probably does it worse than just blue green Uro. It's just so hard to make up for Uro. Such a good card in a beatdown deck. The Merfolk synergies and Elf synergies not super appealing, and then Goblins I was a little disappointed, but maybe I built the deck wrong. It was actually the only typo deck that made top 32 in the first challenge in standard. Shout out to one and only Fire Shoes. We'll get
Do
into
you think he
that.
tagged on Twitter, or
Sorry.
do you think he tagged himself on Twitter
Uh,
after achieving the
I don't know.
result?
He got like 14s. He went 4-2 though, but he made top 16, so that's pretty solid. But yeah, it was a little underwhelmed. I'm not sure I would say disappointed, but I tried a bit of the birds. I tried to play a few matches was each deck. So I guess I was probably wrong about Mutable Explorer being very good, and seems like maybe people who just pick the elementals and formidable speaker were probably right. Obviously, spell snare hex a ton of play, seer, but yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go down the line and give you the early results of the first challenge. First place was mono red leyline, no new cards, 8-1. Uses 4 of the avatar land to gain that extra mana, and yeah, it was kind of interesting at first. I was surprised there's not even a single blood crypt to cast the Sellsword. It's a black 2-drop that you use to fling people, and I guess the reason is they value having their palace station come into play untapped. So that got first place. Second place was mono red, no new cards, 7-2. Third place was Bent Airbend. It's the build that pretty much everyone plays these days. Was 4 of the 4 mana artifact that gives you that extra value that plays well with your grindy sideboard plans. Uh, Fort Temple Garden as the only new card. Fourth place was White Green Landfall. also 6 and 2. Not even a single Temple Garden, but I guess they have all these fetches, and maybe they just expect a lot of red and life total matters. Maybe they were unaware. Um, so yeah, no new
Well,
cards.
I think that this is the deck that might actually not want Temple Garden, right? Just because you
Basing
have the
say,
10 fetch lands,
yeah,
so you want to and Bossing Say, so you kind of want the density. Like you fetch out a lot of your basics a lot of the games, so maybe having four fewer is actually a cost.
yeah, that's fair. They still play the Verge, which taps for green first and painless mana, and you don't need more. Yeah, that's fair. I think I've seen some like Swiss Temple Garden though, but maybe they had more white in them. Um, what about that new card? It's called. Some people were playing it, the one where you need forest, so that's the reason to play Temple Garden. It's like the Felidar
So,
Retreat, but in green. It's called.
oh yes,
I have it
yeah.
written
So it's
down
like
somewhere.
seven green
Yeah, it's
enchantment, or maybe six green.
Sapling Nursery.
Sapling Nursery, yeah. So I think it's six green for an enchantment, has affinity for forests, and then it says landfall, make a 3/4 reach, something like that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so that's one where if you had that, you would obviously play Tumble Garden before Verge, if either. Yeah, it could be strong in the landfall deck. I mean, they've already started Splash Felidar Retreat for the controlling matchups, right? And maybe that kind of accomplishes a similar thing.
yeah. Then losing in the quarter, so going 5-2 was Lessons, no Storm Chaser talent. They had free spell center in the main deck, along with 4 Steam Vents. They were playing extra counters, 2 free steps ahead as well. But as far as new cards, it was free spell center in the main and 4 Steam Vents. Sixth place was Blue Green Uro, 5 and 2, no new cards. Seventh place, Lessons, no Steam Vents actually. We're joking about it before the podcast, but mana base inertia. Sometimes someone wins with a deck, and given mana base, and that's the mana base for the rest of the format, and no one questions it.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me that this is just something that's been true in Magic for so long, and like people love to take a deck list and change a million cards, but they never consider changing a single land in the mana base, even though we have access to what 6 or 7 different duels of each color combination, and some of them are value, some of them aren't, and yeah, it's so funny to me, and this is just kind of like an apparent result of that, where even a super obvious change that you would make with the new set, they didn't even bother to make the change, but they top it anyways, so maybe they didn't need it.
Yeah, you had the case somewhat recently with Goryo's in Modern, where it wasn't like super like strictly better, but it was almost strictly better, and people were just kind of missed it. The whole like which fetch to play was surveillance and whatnot. Like, so sometimes people will legit play with strictly worse mana base, just because someone
Yeah,
didn't get it perfect the
I think I
first
remember
time.
that. It was like people were playing two polluted deltas and Gorios or something like that, when like two polluted deltas, 4 strands, when Delta was strictly better than Strand, and you would just check the deck dumps every day, and every mana base would be like that, even though it was strictly better, until one person ends up top aiding with a change, and then that becomes the new mana base. It's funny.
Yeah, in eighth place we had kind of our first deck was more than a few new cards. It was Del Deck underscore 89 who played blue white kind of permanent matters creature deck, was two of the new Ajani, as well as two. Um, wrote down SN. I'm guessing I meant spell
Spell
snare.
Snare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 Hallowed Fountain and 1 Glen Alendra Guardian as well. Um, so a few new cards there. Then outside of the top 8, I saw some Sears in the sideboard of blue red, some Sears, which is the new instant speed removal spell that deals 4 to a creature or a planeswalker for 2 mana in some main decks. More in the sideboards. We had Daniel Akos, always playing blue black. He had a very weird choice of 2 stab main. So I was like, oh, I guess he just didn't have the hexes. But then he had 2 hex in the sideboard. So for some reason he valued stab over hex in the main, and we're thinking about it. I think there's only like one or two relevant creatures that maybe stab gets that hex doesn't.
Yeah, I wonder if he just like had his list and then like was about to enter the tournament and was like, "Oh, I need to change these stabs for hexes," and then only change the sideboard ones or something like that. Um,
Maybe
because yeah, I don't really understand. So like the stab is obviously better if it can hit, a 2 toughness or less, 3 or 4 drop, probably. The only ones I can really think of are like Tidebinder or Tishana's Tidebinder and the Hydra that Mono Green plays sometimes.
maybe he was just on the
Um,
next level and he was expecting people to show up with Brigade and some of the new typal cards, and because that would be
yeah,
a good
maybe,
one to get with stab, right? It's a free two for free.
yeah, maybe he's also thinking he can like win combats with it sometimes. Like
All
I
right,
haven't
yeah,
played a lot of blue black, but recently, but like maybe his
that's fair.
Cecils are blocking bigger guys. I don't know. We're kind of grasping at straws here. Like it, even if there are more reasons, it's still going to be pretty hard for me to believe that it's better because we it's so easy to rattle off the number of 1 and 2 mana creatures that stab does not kill. Right, like there's the otter penguin, there's Cecil, there's a
Duckorla,
million of them. It would be,
yeah.
yeah, it's super easy to just rattle off a Keen Eye Curator. Sometimes Badger Mole Cup gets a counter on it. Like there's a ton. So, um, kind of hard for me to believe that, but maybe he knows something we don't.
Yeah, he didn't have a ton of the new creatures, but he did have two Glamour Gifters in the main, which is the 1/2 flash for 2 that turns another creature into a 4/4? No.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. 1/2 flash flyer, ETB, turn a creature into a 4/4, another creature. Um,
that card
Yeah,
reads okay.
could be a protection spell, could be extra damage, helps to kill Kaidos in the mirror potentially. Could be good. Yeah.
Yeah, then shout out to Fire Shoes. He went 4/2 was Goblins. He was the only one to do well, was one of the new typal decks, and he had a bit of the old and a bit of the new, if I recall. He had the full 12 1 drops, the good 1 drops.
Yep.
He had the other speed card, the speed free drop that pumps your that gives haste to your goblins and taps for mana. Um, you have the lists in front of you. You can
I do.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So he had the full 12 one drops. He had Bogart Curse Crafter from the new set. So that's the one that pings when creatures die, along with Hexing Squelcher, which is the all your guys have War 2 and can't be countered. War 2 life rather. Um, and then Sear Slicer Goblin, which is the good old 2 mana goblin, and then 2 copies of Grub and 2 Champions of the Weird to accompany the 4 copies of House Squad Heavy and a Cranko. And then for the non creatures, he had 3 Nameless Inversion, 2 Grub's Command, and 2 Bogart Mischief, which is the enchantment that also turns all your guys into when they die, you drain for 1.
Yeah, I was also surprised
Yeah,
that
just
only two of each of those cards. Like, I didn't play with the enchantment a ton, but I played against it and it seemed kind of decent. And I feel like the commands are kind of the reasons to play these type of decks, especially the goblin ones. Seemed to me like it was one of the better ones. But
Yeah, and they
maybe,
work well together too, right? You can copy the
yeah, you can
the
copy the
enchantment with the
enchantments.
Grubs command.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I could see a deck like this, creating board states that your opponents just can't beat, right? If you just put enough of these mischiefs into play. But the counterpoint to that is that, if they sweep up your board and then you have a mischief, you can't make tokens off of it if you don't have anything to blight onto.
yeah.
He didn't have any copies of Soulstone Sanctuary either, which is might be right just because you have such high mana requirements. But I thought between 4 Cavern of Souls and 4 Eclipsed Realm, maybe you could greed in a couple of those too, or even the Speed Land is another option to get up to max speed a little bit faster when you don't have a Bastard Knock But I'm not positive.
Yeah, the scenario we're talking about actually happened where I was playing Kithkin, I think, and I got third against goblins, and at some point I just couldn't get free anymore because none of the Kithkin stuff really gives trample or evasion. Um, and yeah, I got
And they just
uh,
chump block drain for the entire game,
exactly. There's
basically.
also the
Yeah.
two drop that also pings you when the goblin dies if you want to go deeper in that direction. Um,
Yeah, he had Fire Shoes had 4 of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Next, there was some spell snare and blue white control. There was Bertram, who went 4-2 was blue black. He had a bunch of the new cards. He had 4 of the Flater Wing Nuisance and 4 Hex as well as 3 spell snare in the main. The Nuisance is a blue 1-drop, 1/1 for 1 that can draw you a bunch of cards. Um, for free mana. It's a 2/2 that starts with a -1/-1 counter, and when you remove the counter, you can draw cards. You can obviously combo it with Hex, put the counter back, and use it again. So that can be pretty cool. And he had no 4 of each, and went a pretty respectable 4/2. Not the
Yeah, he
bit.
had no enduring curiosity either. He's kind of using the nuisance as like a one shot curiosity instead, and just lowering the curve.
Yeah, that was one of the decks I tried to. I did try fairies, and my limited experience was that the bitter blossom creature was kind of tough to cast, and you pretty much have to play starting town to be able to go blue on the one and double black on two, and then you're taking a lot of damage from your lands, and then the bitter blossom creature is also dealing damage to you. So I think I lost a game like that in the early access. So um, there might be a build was that card, but it looked like on paper, like in theory, when I was thinking about it, I thought it was like gonna be rough. But could powerful if you can figure it out. But yeah, no one had that card in their blue black decks, anyways. Next, there was a red deck was 2 Boulder Dash. That's the new Arc Trail and Force here in the sideboard. There was Macwin Sauce, who went fringe through his blue green Uro. Looks like he just paid the new card tax. He had 1 Mutable Explorer, 1 Wistfulness, 1 Oko in the sideboard, plus 1 in the main. And he had a sideboard. Let's test your Lorwyn knowledge. 1
Okay.
Pummeler for hire.
Pummeler. Oh, that's a. You had to make it a little bit harder for me. That's like a premium uncommon. So it's a
Damn.
5 mana 4/4 gain life equal to the greatest power among giants you control, and then has Ward 2, I think.
Yeah, it has word 2. I think it might have either Vigilance or Trample. Might
It
have
has
another.
Vigilance. It
Yeah.
might also have Trample, but it definitely has Vigilance.
So it's basically 4/4/4/5 gain 4. I guess it's
Yes.
really for
Yeah.
mono red for tutor 4. Soulstrong also had an Oko and a Wistfulness in the main deck of his blue green deck, and that's kind of the recap of that first standard challenge. Maybe there's another one today. I'm not too sure, but um, nothing. Notably, no reanimator in that tournament, and nothing wild. I'm not sure what are the like crazy build arounds people could try, but uh, yeah, just kind of what you would expect. Some
Yeah. A
shockwing and
lot.
some spell snares.
Well, it's not surprising, right? Because it's a lot of the easy stuff, right? Like it's not
Yeah,
you don't need to test to know that Hex and Spell Snare are going to be an upgrade for a lot of these decks. Um, that kind of is just going to be a given. Building around some of these new cards or bringing up archetypes that were potentially bad before and now can compete. It's going to take a little bit more work than perhaps day one standard challenge was able to give.
yeah. I also did the same thing for the 5 leagues. There was I think 6 or 7 decks that were recorded as 5 in the new format. There was Temple Garden and Hallowed Fountain and Bant Airbent. There was someone who went 5 with Steamer Battle Crier was 4 Bloom Tender in the main deck. There was some spell snares in the sideboard of Bant. There was some Stevens and spell snare in the main of Lessons. There was that Sapling Nursery card, potential upgrade on Felidar Retreat in landfall, and they were playing Temple Garden because they had one nursery in the main plus two in the sideboard. So we're talking about it. Makes sense there. You need affinity for forest. And then there was Stephenson was a bunch of numbers that actually got two 5-0s was Reanimator, and in one of the versions, I'm not sure which one came first, but in one of the versions they had a lot of the new cards in the main. So they had free hex, um, two snares, the full 8 elementals, and four of the speakers. And then in another one, they just had four speakers in the main. It was just one wistfulness and two deceits, so pretty low. And then they had up to four of each after sideboard and some hexes in the sideboard. So that was kind of my instinct. I think that's maybe what I played when I played early access. I haven't played since. Was Reanimator, but that was my instincts. Like they were going to be decent, but you didn't want to go too crazy with them. Um, it's also not tricky for the mana to play both. I feel like you kind of almost want to pick one that you want to max out on, and
Yeah,
not
because
sure
they don't overlap the way that you want them to necessarily. Like the blue black one, you typically want to do the black mode on if you're evoking on turn two.
exactly.
Where the blue green one you want to do the blue mode.
Yeah,
Um, so it can be tough to build your mana base to support both.
yeah. So that was yeah, that was like early look at standard. We obviously I started playing a tiny bit. I'm not sure how much you have played, but it's gonna go fast. We're recording on Wednesday evening. We both fly to Richmond on Saturday, and deck lists are due in yeah less than a week
5 days.
already.
Yeah.
So
And before that even happens, we have the results of the American Regional Championship this weekend, which will be the first look at the at standard with the new cards. So it's gonna be a crazy turnaround. Just watching coverage while traveling, while at the testing house. You know, maybe we're gonna have the deck that we're kind of hoping to play already, and hoping that no one does well with it, or vice versa. Or maybe we're gonna be completely lost and and hoping someone breaks it at the regional. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah, or having a deck that's good against a part of the meta and hoping that part of the meta maybe does really win in
Right.
Portland. It used to happen when they started having Star City Open. So back in the day, it was the Pro Tour was the first big tournament in the new format. Always, usually a couple weeks after the new set, and then at some point they started having Star City games open the week before the PT, but an RC is a bit of a bigger deal, and I'm guessing people are gonna try a little harder and test a little more, even though you know card availability, all that stuff is all tough. So maybe we also shouldn't put too much stock into the. Um, I'm always in the
Into the
camp
resort.
of like give PT players a little more respect than just net decking stuff, and I always tell the team if we think something is good, that should move the needle, and we shouldn't. We should, definitely the online stuff is important and it's somewhat indicative. But I don't know if you agree with that or not. By the way, I'm not sure who on the team would agree with that. That I always say like if we think this is good, other people might figure it out, and um, we should
I
adjust
think it
for
can go
it.
one of two ways. I think it can be. I think if we're talking about like an established deck, and we think like, for example, for the last PT, like we thought Bant Airbending, like we weren't beating anything with it, or this is Worlds, I guess. We weren't beating Bant Airbending with anything in house. Or sorry, vice versa. Like we were Band wasn't beating anything in our house testing. I think that's a spot where we can be like, maybe unless a team kind of comes up with something novel, that this is something that they're also going to figure out. On the other hand, I think, when it comes to like innovating new archetypes or like something more out of left field than just like, a matchup spread for an established archetype, I think it can be maybe to our detriment to kind of assume that people are going to figure out the same things we did. Like for again with the world's example, like we didn't. I don't think we really had any reason to believe that people thought lessons was as good as we did, just because um, like we were doing something that the majority of people weren't doing, and there's no reason to kind of assume that they were all going to figure that out too.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's totally fair. But yeah, that's it for standard, I guess, this week. Is there anything else that you had in mind that you wanted to add, or something about the testing process this time around? Since we're talking about that,
No, I think we about covered it. I mean, I'm excited to get into the weeds of it. I think that the standard format is was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun last format, and I think it's gonna continue to be a lot of fun with the new cards. So, looking forward into to figuring out what I'm gonna play.
yeah, it looks like there's just enough to shake up the format a bit and
Right.
make it interesting, even if it's only a couple months after Worlds and Steam standard format. Cool. Quick note: I played a bit of Arena Cube, and it was funny. I did my first cube draft, and I started picking some fetch lands. I was like, "Oh, I'll just draft Omnath," you know. And then people were like, "Oh, Omnath's not in the cube," and they're apparently, I don't know if you've played it, but they're still lagging on Magic Online, and they're still at the stage where they still have heinous cards in the cube for no reason. Whereas I feel like the vintage cube on Magic Online, they're finally at a point where it's all good cards, except maybe for the Hogak archetype. But at least there's the good cards for that archetype if you want to try and draft it.
Right. Yeah. No, they've done great strides with the Moto Cube in the past couple years. I've been super impressed with it. I have not played any of the arena one. I've watched Brittany play a little bit of it, but I haven't gotten to the weeds of it myself. Um,
I
but
think,
yeah, I did hear that it was a little bit lagging behind, a little bit reminiscent of the maybe the early 2020s Moto Cube.
yeah, I think one nice thing about not having any bad cards like that is, in some ways, it's probably worse for good players who are trying to win because it's. I feel like you used to get paired in Vintage against people whose decks were like pretty bad, and they would get trapped picking the wrong cards or trying to do something they can't really do. Whereas now it's all good cards. Like people almost never have bad cards. There's a lot of fixing, and I think that's just better experience for someone who doesn't know the queue very well and drafts it occasionally, and they'll have a probably more cohesive deck in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think another big thing when it comes to vintage cube specifically is that when there's a lot of like a high density of lower power cards, you kind of feel the impact of like the power 9 and like the super broken fast mana a lot more. Um yeah, long period of time where drafting vintage cube, it kind of felt like my opponent had time walk, the game's over. Opponent had ancestor, the game's over. And when the power level is a lot more flat, or rather, there's a higher density of strong cards, you can do a lot more catch up at least in those scenarios, and give yourself a fighting chance. And I think that leads to kind of a better experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, you can beat some good reanimator draws just by playing a few good one drops, stuff like that comes up a bit. Yeah, totally. Uh,
I don't know if you saw the Circovitz post about the arena cube.
no,
So apparently he did some sleuthing, doing his Circovit stuff and digging into the data. Apparently the packs on the arena cube are seeded so that there can't be more than one piece of power in the pack,
I did
or
hear about
it says
that
piece of
actually.
power
I
and scoring.
think it's like what 20,000 packs sampled or something.
Yeah, no, the sample is large enough that it's all but confirmed that's the case. And yeah, they've created it in such a way that you can't open two of some 11 combination of 11 cards, so it's like the 9 pieces of power, soul ring, and mana vault, I think, or mana crypt. um yeah, just they made it impossible to open either two of those in the same pack. And it was shocking to me when I saw it, because I don't really understand the motivation to do that.
It doesn't even make
um
sense, right? It, like, if anything,
no.
doesn't it make it more likely that a player gets a lot of power and someone else doesn't? Because at least when there's two in a pack, you're getting one and someone else getting one, and then you're
Right.
less likely to open one the next time around because there's one
Yeah,
less
I
power in the pool.
I really just don't get it. I
Just
mean, maybe
just
they have
just add it to
some
the
study
just add it to the list of like stuff the arena team does.
happening.
They're just spinning the wheel and they're like, wee. I mean,
Yeah, because maybe they have some study that shows like people are more likely to be satisfied if they have exactly one piece of power. But like, I don't know. It's like it's more work for them to do this and to keep it up. And then like yeah, like getting past a piece of power is like a sweet thing to happen like when you're drafting. So that never gets to happen for these players and I really just I don't get it at all.
maybe I'll. I don't know. I don't think he'll have the answer, but maybe I'll ask Huey in Richmond or someone in Richmond. I mean, it could be just silly. It could be just like, oh, why don't we do that? And they're like, sure, like, and just not even realizing that it really doesn't like
There was
balance
one
out
like
the.
one intern who just like is thinking back to the time where he lost to someone who had Soul Ring, Lotus, and a Mox, and he's like, Never again. I'm gonna get these out of here."
Yeah, that's funny. No, actually, like someone did mention that in my chat. There was some pre-modern news. They banned Parallax Tide, which was kind of boogeyman. I guess a lot of blue decks, a lot of abusing Parallax Tide. Either was Chain of Vapor or Stifle. I haven't played the format enough to know whether that was justified or not. Apparently, it's just the one guy who created the format who decides what gets banned. That's how it works.
Oh,
So they're
really?
asking like, is it commander? Is there a committee? How does it work? And they're like, nope, it's just the one guy.
Just one guy.
Yeah, kind of gas. I'm guessing it's not a bad ban. Tide is somewhat oppressive, but yeah, I played a tiny bit more. I played a bit with that black green midrange deck. Not getting good vibes of the deck. It's all clunky. Everything's all weird about it. And someone in my chat was saying it's kind of a deck people play because they have nostalgia and it's cool, but it's never been great. So that was my sentiment. I didn't play a ton with it, but I would definitely still pick my white black build over black green for now. And finally, I played actually a decent bit of Modern this week. I went 5-2 in a challenge with my Mono Blue One Shitong deck I talked about before, just 4 One Shitong, 4 Tomio, bunch of counter spells, 4 Dismember in the main deck. Started 0-2, I will say, so I was in the 0-2 bracket the whole time, but every time I play that deck, I do just good enough that I feel like, I can maybe give it another shot. And if anyone out there really like their islands, you can check out my stream, the YouTube VODs, whatnot. If you like playing a lot of blue cards at instant speed, Wan Xintong continues to impress. Whenever I have it early in the game, I feel like I do well in the games. It's really put in threat. Playing the demolition field or field of range to combo with it, and I also wanted to play more miracles or more Orms chant, blue white. And just as I was thinking about what I was going to play, there was Sean Henry, who top aided last Worlds. A really good player. He's been playing a lot of that, and he got me to try his list. It was Miracles for Terminus. He was playing Up, and he was playing Telling Times. I just copied
Throwback.
his list, no changes, and I made top eight. It was good. I went 5-2 in the Swiss, and I lost in the quarters. I lost to the same player twice, playing the Omnath Birthing Ritual Bloodbraid Elf Charlotte Agent, just full value deck, really tough matchup, just tons of card advantage. He even had the Charm on main deck to kill my lands, just really really bad matchup. I don't think I won a game against that player, and then I lost once to Energy. I think I went 1-1 or 2-1 against Energy. So I was actually impressed by Telling Time and Terminus. I've kind of always been disappointed with the Miracles package, and I think Telling Time makes it playable and decent. And I did feel like it was meaningfully better than having, other cards and verdicts in my deck as my sweeper. So for now, I would recommend it. It was 2 up free Telling Time. I think I would make a few tweaks. I would maybe just cut the ups and play only 4 Telling Times, along with the 4 Brain Surge. that he plays to combo his Terminus. He had two of the big Teferi and no Jace. I think I like the 1/1 split. It makes sense. It's good with Terminus. The big Teferi is nice with Counterspell and Orm's Chant, but I think this plays a little better. I would try and make room for Besa in the sideboard. He had two Rest in Peace in the sideboard. I think maybe I would cut one for a Besa. That card's pretty strong against energy. But no, his list was pretty solid. Counter spells, no weird counters, just counter spells and Force of Negation. No spells there, no certain scolding. He had a Path to Exile or two. I think his initial list had two endings, but he was playing all four colors. And I think I would just play 3 or 4 endings. Definitely 4 in the 75. The 4 colors came up because I killed a Shield Dread. I got paired against Necro one round and got a Shelly. So he had it for Karn, which is a card that's tough to beat. It's kind of the big one. Kaido's not as popular these days, I guess. Not a ton of blue-black, but that could be another good target. But yeah, I would make these changes. Thus, try and go up to 4 endings. Maybe play March of Otherworldly Light over Path, since you have already... You're pretty heavy on the removal with creature removal with Terminus and Solitude. So I think March kind of makes sense. I was honestly I was not super surprised because I know he's a good player and he plays a lot, and sounded like him and his friend had a lot of good results with the deck. So I guess it should have come as a surprise, but still, yeah, pleasantly surprised. If anyone, you know, wants to play blue-white control, wants to yeah, I would vouch for that list and I would give it a try.
Now, do you think that like Terminus, the effect is stronger in the format right now, or is it just the fact that you feel like you need to kind of keep up counter magic more frequently the turns that you're trying to sweep, and that's why you like it better than Verdict?
I think it plays nicely. You get to play, for Surveilland. Um, Brain Surge is kind of a good card. People always bring up Bowmaster. A, Bowmaster is not played that much. B, if you go Brain Surge, they go Bowmaster, you untap and you Terminus. Are you even behind on that trade? You're up a card because of the Brain Surge.
Right.
You took a bit of damage. It was a nice combination of like these turns where you set up the Terminus and you get to do something else. You need to clear the board and have Counterspell mana up. It was occasionally what you said, getting rid of a Flage, for instance. Thing that came up. Another thing that came up was someone having Flage in the yard and you just, shuffling the cards away instead of them
Don't
going
add
to the
cards to the
graveyard.
graveyard. Yeah.
When they only had like 2 or 3 cards to exile to Flage, their Seasoned Pyromancer. So kind of a combination of all these things. Trying to remember if I had any like super, super lucky ones. I had, 1 or 2 in the early game where I got to 1-for-1 with Terminus. Nah, yeah, it was kind of combination of all these things, and it was good, honestly. Trying to think anything cool came up, but no, not really. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Seems solid.
that's limited, standard, early access, pre-modern, modern, arena cube. Anything you wanted to talk about? I think I went through my checklist.
No, I mean I think that's about it. Yeah, we gotta get into the weeds of standard testing. Looking forward to the results of this weekend. I don't know is it even modern after the Pro Tour, or is it just gonna be more standard? I don't even know when the next big modern tournament is, but I mean I would be interested in playing that blue white deck if that came up.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. We could do a life on the line for modern, I
Oh
guess.
sure, yeah.
Since standard, we wouldn't be very genuine, I guess, if we had to do that. So, well, oh, I forgot. I mentioned living in playing my first league.
Oh
It was
right,
funny. It
yeah.
was kind of my plan. I was like, I'll play some modern for the YouTube channel of TCG Player. We have some obligations as it's our sponsor, so I need to do some content once in a while. I was like, well, Might as well do modern. It's has a lot of new cards. It's rare, honestly, that you get to play so many new cards in a modern deck. But yeah, the choice between the banned version was Ardently or the Sultai version I've always liked better was the Black Overlord. I went with Sultai. It was funny. There was actually Mengu streaming a league of Sultai living in this morning, and I took some ideas from him. He had Kivaro in it that I would have probably not played if I hadn't
Is
seen
that the
his
Spider-Man?
list. Yeah, Superior Spider-Man, the one that's
Okay.
played in Reanimator in Standard. So what I did was I cut the Steam Core Scholar I had, I cut Flare of Denial, trimmed some cyclers, and I played 4 Wistfulness and 2 Deceits, I think. I played all 4 Formidable Speaker. I played 1 Superior Spider-Man, and I was like, well, I have Spider-Man in 4 GEDs, so um, I played an Atraxa to try and live the dream of discarding Atraxa to Speaker and getting Kavaro. Also pitches to both, but yeah, Wistfulness pitches to both Endurance, Force, and Subtlety, all free. Same for Atraxa. So that's kind of big. Wistfulness gives you a way to get rid of cards. Living in is actually not super great at ditching the extra living ins these days. So that's nice. And um, it played out nicely, honestly. The I lost my first round to a really tough matchup to blue red Affinity Cutter. So kind of just got locked out by Emery and Tamio both games. They have rebukes. They have access to Crypt in the main. Uh, I've played both sides of the matchup, and it's a tough one for living in. They have just so many answers. Saga's kind of a nightmare, even with Wistfulness. Like it's not even that good of a trade. They go Saga, you go Wistfulness. Um, so that was a tough one. I got 2-0'd, but after that, I beat a bunch of cool decks. I beat Soul Sisters. I beat White Green Ritual, and then I beat 2 Eldrazi deck. I beat the Aggro Eldrazi, some really close games, and I beat Eldrazi Ramp. Um, I brought in the Betrayal against Eldrazi both times. Uh, in open deck lists, I'm not sure how potent that plan is, but I don't think it's trivial for them to board out all their big stuff. Uh, but yeah, as far as the new cards goes, Wistfulness was really solid. I think, honestly, it sounds dumb to say it's kind of straightforward, but the difference between the two is that one is 5 mana and the other is 6. And I think that's kind of a big deal in the grindy games.
Right.
You talked about the mana requirement. The double black on 2 is really tough. I did add one of the blue green Failtail lands to the mana base. Um, cut I think I still added Takenuma as a utility land. I cut that and added I think it's called Flooded Grove. So keep in mind that these lands exist and are probably good if you're playing the elementals. The seats, I was going in thinking the seat was kind of mad, and I still feel like it is, but maybe it's just my initial bias. Um, so I'm not sure how good that card is, but Wistfulness.
It's a it's extremely good with the if you're playing the JED Superior Spider-Man package maybe might be the selling point.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the ideas to be able to do that. But yeah, that's the other thing I was mentioning. I was super impressed by Spider-Man just as a utility card. There was a game where I got my opponent's Solitude. I got to exile it. I got a 4/4 life playing. That was huge for me. And then when I cast the Living End, they were -1 Solitude. I felt like that card was just overall super solid. I'm not sure I would play more than one, but the first copy, I felt like you're gonna be pretty happy to see it most of the time. I think I would probably play 4 Wistfulness in the main. The Deceits, I'm not too sure. And as far as Formidable Speaker, my guess is that in the Sultai version, you probably won 1 or 2 because you do go games without finding Agent, but I'm not sure it's good enough to play 4. I will say there were spots, even without getting Agent, it was nice to, I would get a backup Subtlety, just getting one of the, you know, having more ways to
Which
find that subtlety that locks up the game for you. or endurance. So maybe I am wrong. Maybe you do want, the full four. The body's obviously not super impressive. So on that one, I think jury's still out. But overall, I was impressed with the new card. I think they do make the deck better. There's always a problem that some of the decks in the format just kind of line up decently against Living In, whether it's the Consigns in the main or Solitudes and Flage and that kind of stuff. So still a powerful deck. People have been playing the banned version and doing well uh, occasionally. So probably still has a decent energy matchup, especially the banned version that's pretty streamlined and pretty good at just living inning on turn free consistently. But yeah, cool, cool aspect, and just casting Wistfulness on 5 is probably going to win you a lot of games too. You already have a good flash plan with Endurance and Subtlety, and that one fits nicely.
Cool. Yeah.
All that being said, Life on the Line, Modern. It's a tournament. For those of you new, it's a tournament. I should say theoretical tournament. If you win, you lose. If you win, you live. If you lose, you die. And we both have to bring a deck of the formats we've talked about this week. I guess I didn't ask you a question. You can give the answer now. What do you think is better, Elementals or White Black in Lorwyn Limited?
I would say elementals right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. What was the second best type?
I think I said elves.
Would you say Elves is also better than White Black?
No, that's where I'm close. I think I would want to try to be white black more than I would want to try to be elves at this point.
All right.
And I
Uh,
and I hope that ends up being the case, because if it doesn't, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed.
yeah. All right. All right. So that was Lauren, but let's put our life on the line for Modern. I'm gonna go with the Blue Eye Chan deck. The Miracles version was a few tweaks I talked about. The probably cutting the obs, going up to foretelling time, one Jace, one 5 mana to fairy, maybe a base on the sideboard. But I was impressed. What about you, Edgar?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have not played very much modern, so I don't have high hopes for living in this theoretical tournament. But yeah, I mean, I do like the sound of this Blue Eyed Miracles deck too. I mean, if you think it has a good energy matchup, can kind of keep up with the Riddler decks as well. Um,
Yeah, combo's also
yeah,
like
and
pretty on Magic Online. Anyways, it's pretty popular. Whether it's Storm, I've been playing against Neobrand a bunch again recently, and the Storm matchup's pretty tough to lose. It was funny actually. It was kind of Sean Henry was in my chat, and apparently I was taking some bad lines against Storm, so it was kind of cool and interesting.
you were
Um,
trying to lose, but you couldn't anyways,
yeah,
because you're still playing Scepter Chant, right?
yeah,
That's kind of the yeah. Yeah, I mean that deck sounds nice. So I can dust off my telling times. It's been a while since I played those, so yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that deck as well.
all
Maybe
right.
there will be a local modern tournament after the PT I can go to.
Fluorite Miracles chant, best deck in Modern. You heard it here first.
We
Uh,
both just really don't want to play Boros Energy, I think, is the the reality of it.
yeah, no chance. Even though after playing it in the cube a lot, that Johnny Bombardment combo is pretty sweet, I will say.
Yeah, write that one down. We might need to save that one. Maybe
Uh,
maybe no one knows about that one yet.
yeah. Well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. We'll again abandon you next week. We'll be gone for the PT, but hopefully we will be back in a couple of weeks with a lot of good stories. Hopefully, a lot of wins for either of us, both of us at the PT. Maybe a little top 8 story. That'd be cool and fun. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Uh, and we'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.